Evening, everyone. I hope you guys are doing well. So, today we are going to be checking organic chemistry. All right. So, in organic chemistry, we'll be looking at organic molecules, right? Organic molecules, these are molecules that contain carbon atoms, right? So, if there is carbon in a molecule, or there are other atoms that are bonded to the carbon atom, then we say that molecule is a is an organic molecule. All right. So, but we're also going to be dealing with what we call hydrocarbons, right? Hydrocarbons. Remember, a carbon can also bond with other atoms like maybe oxygen to form carbon dioxide or carbon monoxide, right? But now, when a carbon atom bonds with only hydrogen atoms, so it is only surrounded by hydrogen atoms, there are no other atoms that are bonded with it, then it is called a what? A hydrocarbon. Hydrocarbon. The molecule will be called hydrocarbon. What is a hydrocarbon? These are organic compounds that consist of hydrogen and carbon atoms only. They only have carbon and hydrogen atoms only. Then they will be called hydrocarbons. We also have this particular name that we use here in chemistry. This stands for family. Homologous series is more like family when I say family. All right. So homologous series, this is a series of molecules that can be described by the same general formula. Okay. So there are certain molecules that belong to the same family, just like when you have your siblings, right? You all have the same surname, right? So when you're called by your surnames, you'll find that all of you are called in the same way. It's the same thing as homologous series, right? So it's a surname of a particular family, right? So it's a series of molecules that can be described by the same general formula. All right. So we're going to be starting with the first homologous series called alkane. So our first homologous series is called alkane. So this is the first family that we're going to be studying. All right. Alkane, it has this general formula. So the general formula of alkanes, the general formula of alkane is CnH2n plus 2. Guys, this is very important. Very, very much important. You must memorize this general formula. You must memorize it. It says CnH2n plus 2. Let me show you how to use it. Let's say you are given um, two, you are given um, two carbon atoms. How many hydrogens should I have here that are going to bond with these two carbons to form an organic compound? I need how many hydrogens? This is how I use the general formula. I'll come and say, okay, this two, it means it stands for N. So my N is 2. My N is 2. Can you see? Now, you are going to say 2 multiplied by 2 because N is 2. So you say 2 multiplied by 2, you get 4 plus 2. How many hydrogens should you have? You must have 6. So C2H6 is a molecular formula. This is a molecular formula of what? Of an alkane. So this molecular formula describes a molecule that falls under alkane, right? Because it is described by this general formula. Okay, so I can also have C4. How many hydrogens should I have here if I have 4 carbons? I should have how many hydrogens? Remember, your N is 4. So you substitute the 4 here. 2 times 4, what do you get? You get 8 plus 2, you have 10. Okay. So again, this is the molecular formula, but it was described by this general formula. So it can, this molecular formula can be described by this general formula. This molecular formula can also be described by this general formula. Therefore, these two molecular formulas, they fall under the homologous series, which is called alkane. Okay, so let's check something here. For alkane, the ending here, or suffix, the suffix of alkane, the suffix of alkane is ane, okay? We're going to use that soon. Let us first deal with this. Okay, so for alkanes, these ones, alkanes are saturated hydrocarbons. We say alkanes are what? Are saturated hydrocarbons. Why do we say alkanes are saturated hydrocarbons? They do not have multiple bonds between carbon atoms. So they are called saturated because they do not have multiple bonds between carbon atoms. So when we say multiple, it starts from two and more. It can, but in this case, we only have a maximum number of bonds can be 3. So it can have 2 or 3 bonds if we say a structure has multiple bonds. So alkanes do not have double or triple bonds, right? It does not have multiple bonds between carbon atoms. Okay. So let me teach you how to write what we call IUPAC naming. IUPAC naming. Right. Because this is the first lesson, I will first teach you, or maybe revise with you, this information from grade 11, remember, in agriculture. Now, here we're going to have the number of carbons, and we're going to have the prefix. Now, if you have one carbon, so just do it like this. If you have one carbon should, when you write your IUPAC name, you should start with what? With meth. That would be your prefix. If you have one carbon, you start with meth. If you have two, you start with eth. If you have 3, you start with prop. If you have 4, you start with but. If you have 5, you start with pent. If you have 6, you start with hex. If you have 7, you start with hept. If you have 8, you start with oct. Right. So you must know this information. Memorize it. It's very, very much important. You must memorize it. I don't know how you are going to do it, but make sure you memorize. 1 meth, 2 eth, 3 prop, 4 but, 5 pent, 6 hex, 7 hept, 8 oct, just like the shapes in mathematics. All right, so now we know how to start the IUPAC naming, because we now do have the prefix of our structures. Now, if maybe you are given, let's say you are given this particular structure. So this is a structure that we're given. I'm sure you guys still remember these because we did it in agriculture. So if you have this particular structure, remember the name. How many carbons do you have here? You have 2. And 2, you start with what? You start with earth. So you are going to start with earth, but how do you complete the name? Remember, this is an alkane. This is an alkane. An alkane, I said the suffix here is ane. So this will be ethane. Ethane. That will be the IUPAC name. It's ethane. Okay. So what if you have this? What if you have this? What will be the name here? It's 1 carbon. Remember, when it's 1, you start with meth. You start with meth. But this has single bonds. Can you see? There is only single bonds. 1 bond, 1 bond, 1 bond, 1 bond. So it has single bonds. Therefore, it falls under our molecular series alkane. It must end with ane. So you say this is methane. It's methane. Now, if you wanted to write the molecular formula here, how would you write it? How many carbons do you have? 2. So you say C2. How many hydrogens do you have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6. What about this one? You have 4 hydrogens, 1 carbon, CH4. That is the molecular formula. I'm sure you guys still know how what a molecular formula stands for. All right, we've done that a lot of times. So if maybe you had this, let's say you have this. Maybe you can pause the video and just write the name before you see it here. So this is just an introduction. We're still going to do a lot